Hello and welcome to another video. Today's video starts us off in upstate Texas in a dusty, dirty town where no one wants to live. It's the kind of place where you're stuck unless you join the military. There's an old farmhouse that's been there for years and years. The kind of place that you think would be abandoned. Old, dirty, white, two-story farmhouse. The boards are falling off. There's 3 feet of grass. Old rusty cars on blocks in the driveway. An old rusty old truck. That's how they get around. The old farmer does the best he can when he's not drinking himself to death, that is. He lives there with his 13-year-old daughter, Monica, and the 15-year-old Lucy, which is the oldest. The old farmer doesn't have much to do. There's no water, and the crops won't grow. In between complaining about everything, he takes Monica around behind the barn. Monica doesn't like to go. He abuses her constantly, and Lucy doesn't do anything. She just takes care of her baby and sits on the porch drinking sweet tea, ignoring what's going on, thinking, thank God it's not me. One day the old man was working on his old truck, looking at Monica in her sundress, looking at the outline through the shadows of the dress. The old man wipes the sweat off his brow, licking his lips. He's like, I think it's time for a break. Yelling to Monica, come here, girl. Time for you to get to work. Monica, knowing exactly what's going to happen. She's been abused for years. She shakes her head. She's like, no, I don't want to. Kind of scooting back on the porch with her iced tea in her hand. The farmer goes, God damn it, I told you to come here. Reluctantly, she goes up to the old man and he twists her ear and leads her behind the barn. All you hear is screams as he slaps her around, knocking her into the dirt. That's when Monica's like, fine. Just stop hitting me and I'll do what you want. You gross old man. He's like, I'll gross old man you, as he lifts up his hand. She's like, I'll do it. He's like, damn straight you'll do it. As he starts to unbutton his fly, she says, close your eyes, and I'll do the best job I've ever done, I promise. Licking his lips with a smile, he's like, all right. And then that's when Monica gets off her knees and grabs a pickaxe leaning against the barn. With a smile and a glossy look in her eyes. She's like, are you ready? And he's like, yep. And she swings the pickaxe, and with a thud, it breaks a rib as it goes into his heart. As he screams, he falls to his knees, opening his eyes, seeing the blood squirt all over Monica. He's like, God damn it, I can't believe you did that. Monica goes, ain't life a bitch? And she takes the handle and twists it, twisting the pickaxe in his heart. He screams and falls to the ground, convulsing, squirting blood all over the place, as Monica just stands there in a complete pool of blood. That's when she looks behind her, seeing the old diesel. She just smiles, thinking it's shredding time. As she walks over to the old chipper shredder, she yanks on the cord and yanks, and with a violent shake and a big roar, the big diesel shredder comes to life. Lucy doesn't know what to think. She's like, oh, fine. Lucy's like, it's about time he stopped abusing her. Maybe he put her to work. As she kind of takes care of her baby on the porch. Meanwhile, behind the barn, Monica's dragging the old farmer to the chipper shredder. As she slowly rolls them in, his hands catch the blade as it tugs them in. And with a grinding roar, the shredder blows him out the other side as a hail of bone and skin and blood blow all over the side of the barn. And just like that, the farmer was gone. Monica, standing there shaking with a smile, hits the button turning off the chipper shredder. Just standing there looking at the blood, looking down. She just takes off all her clothes and rinses herself off with the hose. Still shaking, she walks up to the front porch of the barn and looks over at the house and starts walking towards the house. Lucy's like, "Why are you wet? Where are your clothes?" As Monica looks down at her and her baby, she smacks her on the left and smacks her on the right side of her face and said, "You didn't do anything to stop anything. He's been abusing me for years and you've never lifted a finger. But it's okay. Everybody gets theirs in the end." Walking into the house naked, shaking. Lucy didn't know what the hell was going on. Later on that night, Monica made dinner. And then Lucy and Monica went up to their rooms. Lucy thought it was weird that the farmer wasn't down there drinking, watching TV. But she was taking care of her baby, and she was glad the farmer wasn't messing with her, so she didn't think nothing of it. That's when Monica walked into Lucy's room. Lucy was getting tired, and Monica kind of smiled. She's like, "So, how was your day?" As Lucy puzzled, knowing full blown well that she knew what happened that day, but she couldn't keep her eyes open. Monica's like, "Oh, I must have put too much poison in the soup. But it's okay. I brought rope. It'll make everything better." That's when Lucy kind of looked up. She's like, "Wait, what?" As Monica started to tie her to the bed in an X pattern. Monica got done, and she's like, "All nice and tight. You're not going nowhere. And this is what you get for watching me being abused for years." I'll be back in a minute, though. As Monica walked out of Lucy's room, Lucy heard a bunch of noise. Didn't know what it was. Heard a squeaky wheel on the old wooden floor. As Monica wheeled an oxyacetylene torch into her room, Lucy's like, "What are you going to do with that?" Monica's like, puts her hands over her lips. She's like, "Be quiet. I got a surprise for you." And she runs out of the room. She returns with Lucy's baby. Lucy screams, "Don't hurt my baby." Monica's like, "Don't worry. It'll all be over soon." As Monica takes the clothes off the baby, she takes 8 rusty old nails out of her pocket. And with a hammer, she nails the baby to the floor. Lucy screams, crying, "Stop hurting my baby," listening to the baby cry, as each nail nailed the arms and the feet of the baby to the old wooden floor. All you could hear was the screams of the baby. That's until Monica fired up the torch. With a scrape from the starter, all you could hear was the noise of the torch. Lucy screamed, "What are you doing?" And that's when Monica looked at her with a glazed look in her eyes, not saying a word. She just said, "Revenge is mine." As she held the flame over the baby's face, the baby screamed and screamed and screamed, wiggling its arms as best it could, pinned to the floor by the rusty nails. And then suddenly, the wiggling stopped, and all you could smell was burnt flesh. Monica turned off the torch, dropping the tip to the ground as it made a thud on the wooden floor. Lucy screamed. She's like, I can't believe you did that to my baby. Screaming, just carrying on about the baby. That's when Monica smacked her in the face repeatedly, breaking out a tooth, saying, Shut up! But don't worry. I didn't forget you, dear sister. I didn't forget you. You know how you're so tired and you can barely keep your eyes open? Well, when you finally close your eyes and go to sleep, guess what I'm going to do to you? As she reached down, grabbing the torch, as Lucy could barely keep her eyes open. Her last look was seeing Monica with a glazed look in her eyes, with an evil smile, waiting for her to go to sleep. If you like our stories, don't forget to leave a comment. We love your comments, and please hit that subscribe. We're at 20. We'd love to have a couple more. And as always, have a good night.